I never thought the house I bought with my own sweat and tears would become the place I would be kicked out of by my own parents. Sitting in my car outside my three-bedroom home, rain streaking down the windows, I watched my sister Madison laughing inside what used to be my living room. Just 2 hours ago, my mom had looked me straight in the eye and said the words that shattered my world. Suzanne Madison needs this place more than you do. You can take care of yourself. The worst part. They were not asking, they were telling me. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit that like button if you have ever felt invisible in your own family, and subscribe because this story has a twist that even I did not see coming. Now let me take you back to where this nightmare began. Growing up in suburban Ohio, I always knew I was different from Madison. While she was the golden child with her perfect blonde hair and charming smile, I was the responsible one. Madison, 3 years younger than me, could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. If she failed a test, it was the teacher's fault. If she crashed Mom's car, it was because the roads were slippery. But when I brought home straight A's, it was expected. When I helped Grandma with her groceries every weekend, it was just what good daughters do. My dad, David, worked at the local manufacturing plant, and my mom, Linda, was a secretary at a small insurance office. We were not rich, but we got by. The thing is, even as a kid, I could see the financial strain. I started babysitting at 12, not because I wanted extra money for toys, but because I wanted to help with groceries. Madison. She spent her allowance on makeup and magazines, never thinking twice about where the money came from. When I turned 23, everything changed. Dad got injured at work, slipped a disc that left him unable to do the heavy lifting his job required. Workers' compensation barely covered the basics, and suddenly our middle-class stability crumbled. Mom's secretary salary could not cover the rent on their apartment, the medical bills, and daily expenses. I watched my parents stress about money every single day, saw the way Dad's shoulders sagged when bills came in the mail. That's when I made the decision that would change everything. I had been working at Peterson accounting firm for 2 years, making decent money as a junior accountant. I lived in a tiny studio apartment, ate ramen noodles for dinner most nights, and took the bus everywhere to save on gas and car payments. Every spare penny went into my savings account. For 5 long years, I scraped and saved, working overtime whenever possible, never buying new clothes, never going out with friends. My coworkers thought I was crazy. "Live a little, Suzanne," they would say. But I had a goal. I wanted to buy a house not just for me, but for my family. I wanted to give my parents the security they had lost. I spent weekends driving through neighborhoods looking at for sale signs, dreaming of the day I could make one of those houses ours. When I finally found the perfect three-bedroom house on Maple Street, my heart raced. It needed some work, which made it affordable, but it had good bones. A spacious living room, a decent kitchen, and a backyard where my future kids could play. Most importantly, it had enough room for my parents to live comfortably. The down payment wiped out my savings, but seeing my name on those mortgage papers was the proudest moment of my life. The day I handed my parents the spare keys, my mom cried. "Suzanne, honey, we cannot accept this," she said, but I could see the relief in her eyes. "You are not accepting anything," I told them. "This is our home now. We are family." Dad hugged me so tight I could barely breathe, and for the first time in months, I saw him smile genuinely. Those first 6 months were magical. Dad helped me fix the leaky faucet in the kitchen and plant a small vegetable garden in the backyard. Mom cooked my favorite pot roast every Sunday and always made sure there was fresh coffee in the morning before I left for work. It felt like we were finally the close-knit family I had always wanted. I covered all the expenses, the mortgage payment of $1,800 utilities that ran about $300 groceries that cost around $400 and all the little things that come with home ownership. It added up to about $2,800 a month, which was tight on my salary but manageable. I did not mind. Seeing my parents relaxed and happy was worth every sacrifice. Madison visited occasionally, usually on Sundays, for Mom's cooking. She would arrive in whatever car her current boyfriend was driving, always dressed in clothes I could never afford, talking about her latest adventures. "You have such a beautiful home, Suzanne," she would say, but there was always something in her tone that made me uncomfortable. Once she wandered through the house, checking out each room, and commented, It seems like such a waste for one person to have all this space. I should have paid attention to that comment, but I was just happy to see my family together. Madison had always been dramatic, always felt entitled to things. I figured it was just her way of making conversation. Looking back, I realized she was already planning. Everything changed when Madison's marriage fell apart. She had married Marcus when she was 22, right out of college in a wedding that cost more than my car. For 2 years, they seemed happy enough. Marcus had a good job in marketing. Madison worked part-time at a boutique and they lived in a trendy downtown apartment. But apparently, marriage was not the fairy tale Madison expected. The divorce was messy. Madison called Mom crying almost every night, complaining about how Marcus did not appreciate her, how he worked too much, how he did not want to start a family right away. When she finally filed for divorce, she was already pregnant with their second child. Emma was 4 years old and little Jake was barely 2 when Madison showed up at our door with 2 suitcases and a heartbreaking story. Marcus is not paying child support. Madison sobbed to Mom in our kitchen while the kids played in the living room. He says I can have the apartment until the lease is up, but that's only 2 months. I lost my job because I had to take care of Jake when he was sick, and now I have nowhere to go. Mom looked at me with those pleading eyes I knew too well. Suzanne Madison just needs a place to stay for a few weeks until she gets back on her feet. The kids need stability right now. How could I say no? Emma and Jake were innocent in all this, and despite my complicated feelings about Madison, I loved those children. I cleaned out the guest bedroom, moved my home office to a corner of the living room, and helped Madison set up a temporary nursery. Just a few weeks, she promised, hugging me tight. I will start job hunting immediately. But weeks turned into months. Madison did not seem to be looking for work very hard. Every morning I would leave for the office at 7:30, and every evening when I came home around 6, Madison would be on the couch watching television while Mom watched the kids. I applied to 3 places online today, she would tell me, but I never saw her go to any interviews. Meanwhile, the expenses were skyrocketing. 2 toddlers go through an incredible amount of food, diapers, and supplies. My grocery bill doubled, the electricity bill went up because someone was home all day with the air conditioning running, and we needed child-proof locks on everything. I found myself working overtime just to keep up with the costs, often not getting home until 8 or 9 at night. Madison started complaining about the guest room. It's so cramped in there with the kids, she told Mom. Emma needs space to play, and Jake's crib barely fits. I was thinking maybe Suzanne would not mind if we switched rooms temporarily. The master bedroom is so much bigger. When Mom brought this up to me, I was exhausted from a 12-hour day at work. Mom, it's my bedroom. I need somewhere to unwind after work. The guest room is plenty big enough for a few more weeks. That's when the manipulation started. Madison would make comments about how lucky I was to have such a big space all to myself. Mom began saying things like, "You do not understand how hard it is to be a mother, Suzanne. Madison needs our support right now." Even Dad, who usually stayed out of family drama, started hinting that maybe I was being a little selfish. The breaking point came when I realized Madison had been telling people she was helping me out with the mortgage by staying there. I overheard her on the phone with a friend. "Yeah, I am practically paying Suzanne's bills by living here. She really needed help with the expenses." The audacity of that lie hit me like a punch to the gut. I was supporting her and her children completely while working myself into exhaustion. But every time I tried to address the situation, I was made to feel like the bad guy. "Madison is going through a divorce," Mom would say. "She needs family support." When I suggested maybe it was time for Madison to look into low-income housing assistance or move in with friends, I was told I was being heartless. "Those are your niece and nephew, Suzanne. How can you even think about putting them on the street?" The day that changed everything started like any other. I had been working on a particularly difficult client audit that required me to stay at the office until almost 10 at night. I was exhausted, hungry, and looking forward to nothing more than a hot shower and my own bed. But as I pulled into the driveway, something felt wrong. The first thing I noticed were the cardboard boxes stacked in the garage. My cardboard boxes. I could see my clothes folded inside my books, my personal items all packed away like I was moving out. My heart started racing as I fumbled with my keys, trying to understand what I was seeing. Inside the house, the living room had been completely rearranged. Madison's things were everywhere. Her throw pillows on my couch, her magazines on my coffee table, her kids' toys scattered across the floor. But the real shock came when I walked toward my bedroom and found the door closed. Through the thin walls, I could hear Emma giggling and Jake babbling. They were in my room. I stood there for a moment trying to process what was happening when Mom appeared from the kitchen. Her face was set in that determined expression she got when she had made up her mind about something. "Suzanne, we need to talk." "Mom, why are my things in boxes? Why are the kids in my bedroom?" "Sit down, honey." She gestured toward the kitchen table, the same table where we had shared so many family dinners. But this conversation felt different. Cold. "Your father and I have been talking, and we think it would be best if Madison moved into the master bedroom. She needs more space for the children." "And where exactly am I supposed to sleep?" "Well, you could take the guest room or—" Mom paused, not meeting my eyes. "Maybe it's time for you to get your own place. You are 28 years old, Suzanne. You are capable of taking care of yourself." "Madison has 2 small children and nowhere else to go." The words hit me like a physical blow. "Mom, this is my house. My name is on the deed. I bought this place with my own money." "And that was very generous of you," Dad said, appearing in the kitchen doorway. "But sometimes we have to make sacrifices for family. Madison is in crisis right now. She needs stability for those kids." "What about what I need?" My voice was rising, something that never happened in our family. I was always the calm one, the reasonable one. "I work 12-hour days to pay for this house, for the utilities, for the food that feeds all of us. When do I get to matter? Do not raise your voice at your mother," Dad said sharply. "We raised you better than that. You raised me to sacrifice everything for Madison, apparently." I could not believe the words coming out of my mouth, but 5 years of resentment were finally boiling over. "Do you have any idea what I have given up? I have not taken a vacation in 3 years. I drive a 10-year-old car because every penny goes to this household. I eat lunch at my desk every day because I cannot afford to go out with my coworkers. And for what? So Madison can treat this place like her personal hotel." Mom's face hardened. "Madison is your sister, and she is going through the hardest time of her life. I thought I raised a daughter who understood the meaning of family loyalty." "Family loyalty?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Where was family loyalty when I was working overtime to buy this house? Where was family loyalty when I gave up my savings, my social life, my independence to take care of everyone else? That's when Madison appeared, as if she had been waiting for her cue. She was carrying Jake on her hip, her eyes red from crying. I heard yelling, "Is everything okay?" "Everything is fine," Mom said quickly. "We were just explaining to Suzanne about the new arrangement." "New arrangement." I stared at Madison. "Is that what we are calling kicking me out of my own home?" Madison's bottom lip trembled. "Suzanne, I never asked for any of this. I never wanted to cause problems between you and Mom and Dad. But Emma and Jake need stability. They have been through so much with the divorce, and they are just starting to feel safe here." It was a masterful performance. Madison had always been good at making herself the victim. "If you really do not want us here, I understand. I will take the kids and we will figure something out. Maybe we can sleep in my car until I find a job." "Madison, stop being dramatic," I said, but I could see the way Mom and Dad were looking at me now, like I was the monster threatening to put children on the street. "I am not being dramatic," Madison said, her voice breaking. "I am just trying to do what is best for my babies." "But if Suzanne wants us gone, we will go." And there it was. The trap I had walked right into. If I insisted on keeping my own bedroom in my own house, I was the bad guy putting children at risk. If I gave in, I was rewarding Madison's manipulation and my parents' betrayal. "You know what?" I said, grabbing my purse from the counter. "I need some air. We will talk about this when I get back." But as I headed for the door, Mom called after me. "Suzanne, we have already moved Madison's things. The decision is made. You can either accept it or you can leave. But we are not going to keep disrupting those children's lives because you cannot be flexible." I stopped with my hand on the doorknob. "So that is it, you have decided, in my own house." "It is not just your house anymore," Dad said quietly. "It is the family home, and sometimes the family has to come first." As I drove away that night, my hands shaking on the steering wheel, I realized something that should have been obvious all along. This was not a sudden decision. My parents and Madison had planned this. The boxes did not pack themselves. The room did not rearrange itself. They had been waiting for me to leave for work so they could execute their takeover. But the most crushing realization came later that night when I was staying in a cheap motel, staring at the ceiling and trying to figure out what to do next. I had sacrificed 5 years of my life, my savings, my independence, and my happiness to provide for my family. And they had repaid me by pushing me out of my own home without a second thought. The next morning, sitting in that sterile motel room with instant coffee and a stale muffin from the vending machine, I made a decision. I was not going to roll over and accept this betrayal, but I was also not going to fight dirty the way Madison did. I was going to use the law logic and the truth. My first call was to Jennifer Walsh, a family lawyer I had met through work. "Jennifer, I need some advice about a property law situation." I explained everything, reading directly from my mortgage documents and deed. "What are my rights here?" "Suzanne, you have every right to evict them," Jennifer said without hesitation. "It does not matter if they are family. Your name is on the deed you are paying the mortgage, and they are essentially squatters at this point. I can have eviction papers drawn up this afternoon." My second call was more personal. I contacted Marcus Madison's ex-husband, something I had never thought I would do. "Marcus, this is Suzanne Madison's sister. We need to talk about Emma and Jake." "Suzanne, is everything okay with the kids?" His concern was immediate and genuine. "The kids are fine, but Madison has been telling people you are not paying child support." "I thought you should know she is using that as an excuse to manipulate my parents." There was a long pause. "Suzanne, I have been trying to get shared custody for months. Madison keeps moving around, not giving me addresses where I can pick up the kids for my weekends. I have been sending child support payments to her lawyer, but she told the court I was unreliable." That conversation opened my eyes to just how deep Madison's deception went. Marcus was not the deadbeat father she had painted him to be. He was a concerned dad being kept from his children by a woman who found it easier to play victim than take responsibility. My third call was to the Department of Social Services. It turned out Madison had been collecting welfare benefits, claiming she had no support from family and no place to live. Living rent-free in my house while claiming homelessness was fraud, plain and simple. But before I could execute any legal action, I heard something that changed my approach entirely. I had gone back to the house to get some of my work clothes from those boxes in the garage when I overheard Madison on the phone in the kitchen. "Yeah, I finally got the master bedroom," she was saying, laughing. "Suzanne is so naive, she will never fight back. Mom and Dad have her wrapped around their little finger. She thinks she is being the good daughter, but really she is just being a doormat." The voice on the other end said something I could not hear, but Madison responded, "Oh, she will be back. Where else is she going to go? She has been taking care of us for so long, she does not know how to live any other life. And honestly, this house is way too nice for someone like her to keep all to herself." In that moment, listening to my sister laugh about manipulating me, something inside me crystallized. This was not about family loyalty or helping each other through hard times. This was about Madison taking what she wanted and using emotional manipulation to get it. And my parents had become her willing accomplices. I walked back to my car and made one more phone call. "Jennifer, draw up those eviction papers, all of them. I want my house back." The next week moved like a perfectly choreographed dance of karma. First, Marcus showed up on Tuesday with his lawyer and a court order for his scheduled visitation. Madison tried to refuse, claiming the kids were settled and it would be disruptive, but legal documents do not care about manipulation tactics. Emma and Jake went with their father for a long overdue weekend, and for the first time in months, those children looked genuinely happy. Wednesday, a caseworker from the Department of Social Services arrived to investigate Madison's benefits claim. Funny how being discovered living in a 3-bedroom house rent-free affects your eligibility for homeless assistance. The fraud investigation was opened that afternoon. Thursday, I had a locksmith change all the locks and installed a security system. I also had my lawyer deliver eviction notices to Madison and my parents, giving them 30 days to find alternative housing as required by state law. Friday, I turned off the cable television internet service and changed the utility bills to require immediate payment for continued service. Amazing how quickly someone starts job hunting when the Wi-Fi stops working. My parents called me dozens of times that week, leaving increasingly frantic voicemails. Suzanne, you cannot be serious about this, Mom pleaded. We are family. Family does not treat each other this way. But I remembered what Madison had said about me being naive and never fighting back. I was done being the doormat. When Mom finally reached me, her tone had changed from pleading to angry. Your sister has children, Suzanne. How can you be so heartless? The same way you could be when you kicked me out of my own home, I replied calmly. Marcus is providing a stable environment for Emma and Jake. Madison is a capable adult who can find her own housing and employment, and you and Dad have your Social Security and savings. Everyone will figure it out. We used our savings to help Madison with her divorce lawyer, Dad admitted. We do not have enough for first month's rent and a deposit anywhere. That was the moment I truly understood the scope of their betrayal. They had not only taken my house, they had also financially planned to make themselves dependent on me permanently. The eviction was not just about space. It was about turning me into a permanent caretaker for the entire family while Madison lived consequence-free. Then I suggest you start making some hard decisions about your priorities, I said. The same way you made me do. Madison tried a different approach. She showed up at my office on Friday afternoon without the kids dressed in her most conservative outfit and carrying a folder of papers. Suzanne, I found a job, she announced. Part-time at a daycare center. It does not pay much, but it is a start. Could we work out some kind of payment plan for me to stay in the house? Madison, you have had 4 months to find a job. You found one in a week only because you had no other choice. You are right, she said, and for a moment I thought she might actually be sincere. I took advantage of your generosity. I got comfortable and stopped trying. But I am trying now. Can you not give me another chance? I gave you a chance. I gave you my guest room, my financial support, and my family's stability. You repaid me by taking my bedroom and convincing our parents to kick me out of my own house. Her expression shifted then, and I saw the real Madison underneath the remorseful act. Fine, but do not expect me to make this easy for you. Emma and Jake are going to know exactly why their mean Aunt Suzanne put them out on the street. Emma and Jake are going to live with their father who loves them and has been trying to be part of their lives, I said. And someday, when they are older, they might understand the difference between helping family and enabling destructive behavior. The 30 days passed faster than I expected. Madison found a studio apartment across town, funded by a loan from her new boyfriend, someone she claimed to have met at a coffee shop, but who I suspected had been in the picture longer than she admitted. My parents moved into a senior living community that actually cost less than they had been spending on utilities and groceries at my house. The day I moved back into my own home, I walked through each room, slowly reclaiming the space that had always been mine. Madison had left the master bedroom in surprisingly good condition, though she had taken a few things that belonged to me, small prices to pay for my independence. I redecorated everything, painting the walls colors I actually liked, hanging artwork that spoke to me, arranging furniture the way I wanted it. For the first time in years, the house felt like a home rather than a family obligation. I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Patricia Chen, who helped me understand the family dynamics I had been trapped in for so long. You were not responsible for fixing everyone else's problems, she told me, but you were conditioned from childhood to believe that your worth came from what you could provide for others. The hardest part was learning to live with the silence. My parents stopped calling after the eviction. Madison blocked my number after I refused to loan her money for her security deposit. The absence of family drama was initially uncomfortable, but gradually it became peaceful. I threw myself into work and was promoted to senior accountant within 6 months. With my expenses cut in half and my stress levels manageable, I performed better than ever. I also started dating again, something I had not done in years. When someone asks you out for dinner and your first thought is not about whether you can afford it, dating becomes much more enjoyable. 6 months later, Marcus called to thank me. The kids are doing so much better, he said. Emma is excelling in kindergarten and Jake is talking more. Madison has been consistent with her visitation schedule, and I think finally having to take responsibility for her own life has been good for her too. I never heard directly from Madison again, but through mutual friends, I learned she had actually kept her job at the daycare center and was slowly building a stable life for herself. Sometimes the best thing you can do for someone is stop enabling their dysfunction. My parents and I eventually reconciled, though it took almost a year and several family therapy sessions. They had to acknowledge their role in the manipulation, and I had to forgive while still maintaining boundaries. We have Sunday dinner once a month now, but they understand that my home is mine. The greatest lesson I learned through all of this came during one of my therapy sessions. Dr. Chen asked me, "What would have happened if you had said no from the beginning?" I realized that by trying so hard to be the good daughter, the helpful sister, the responsible family member, I had actually been enabling destructive patterns that hurt everyone involved. Madison never learned to stand on her own because she did not have to. My parents never developed appropriate boundaries because I had always been there to absorb the consequences of their favoritism. Setting boundaries was not selfish, it was survival. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for your family is refuse to participate in dysfunction, even when they make you feel guilty for it. I learned that blood does not always mean family, and family does not mean you have to sacrifice your own well-being for people who would not do the same for you. Sometimes the greatest act of love for yourself is walking away from toxic people, even when they share your DNA. Setting boundaries is not selfish, it is survival. The house still stands, and now it is truly mine, not just on paper, but in spirit. And sometimes I still hear the rain against the windows and remember that night when I almost lost everything. But I did not lose everything. I found myself. What would you have done in my situation? Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and self-preservation? Let me know in the comments below because I love hearing your stories. If this resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about overcoming family drama and finding your own strength. Share this with someone who might need to hear that it is okay to put yourself first sometimes. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that you deserve to be treated with respect, especially in your own home. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next video.